The story of the Gulf Cartel begins in the northern Mexican state of Tamaulipas. What started in the mid-20th century as a small smuggling ring quickly evolved into one of the most dangerous drug trafficking organizations in the world. In the early years, contraband like whiskey, cigarettes, and stolen cars flowed through the porous U.S.-Mexico border. But soon, cocaine and heroin became the business that would define the Gulf Cartel. The cartel found its power base in Matamoros, across from Brownsville, Texas. Its leaders discovered that geography was destiny. The cartel had direct access to U.S. cities through corridors that connected Tamaulipas with Texas highways. By the late 1970s, the cartel was smuggling tons of drugs north, protected by bribed officials, feared by communities, and armed with military-grade weapons. It was in these years that the cartel's brutality became its trademark. Unlike some organizations that tried to work quietly, the Gulf Cartel ruled through intimidation. Entire neighborhoods were silenced by fear, and the cartel's leaders became folk legends of crime. Every empire needs an architect, and for the Gulf Cartel, that man was Juan Garcia Abrego. By the 1980s, he transformed the cartel from a local gang into a transnational powerhouse. Garcia Abrego cut deals directly with Colombian cartels, especially the Cali cartel, ensuring a steady supply of cocaine. His genius was in logistics. He used fleets of trucks, fishing boats, and even airplanes to move drugs across the border. But he also introduced the 50-50 deal with Colombians. The Gulf Cartel would transport cocaine into the U.S. and split profits evenly, rather than charging a fee. This made him indispensable to South American suppliers and untouchable in Mexico. By the early 1990s, Garcia Abrego was listed as one of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives. His wealth rivaled that of business tycoons, and his reach extended deep into both Mexican and U.S. politics. Entire police units worked for him, and politicians looked the other way as his empire expanded. But like every kingpin, his arrogance would attract attention. No cartel leader remains untouchable forever. Garcia Abrego's downfall began with U.S. pressure. The FBI and Mexican authorities launched Operation Hardline, determined to dismantle his network. In 1996, Garcia Abrego was captured and extradited to the United States, marking one of the first times a major cartel leader was sent north for trial. His conviction on multiple drug trafficking charges sent shockwaves through the cartel world. But the Gulf Cartel did not collapse. Instead, it adapted. Into the vacuum stepped Osil Cardenas Gillen, a former mechanic turned ruthless gangster. Under Osil, the cartel entered a new, bloodier era. Osil was different from Garcia Abrego. He ruled not through bribes, but through sheer terror. Known as El Mata Amigos, the friend killer, he had no patience for betrayal. To secure his power, Osil recruited an elite group of Mexican Special Forces deserters. These men became known as Los Zetas, trained in counterinsurgency, guerrilla warfare, and U.S.-style military tactics. Los Zetas transformed the Gulf Cartel into a paramilitary organization. Together, Osil and Los Zetas waged war against rivals and the Mexican state. Their brutality shocked even seasoned investigators. Beheadings, public executions, and mass graves became trademarks of their reign. For the first time, the cartel wasn't just a smuggling organization, it was a paramilitary empire. While violence exploded in Mexico, the Gulf Cartel's drugs flowed north. Cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine flooded Texas cities like Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio. Distribution networks spread as far as Chicago, Atlanta, and New York. U.S. law enforcement agencies noticed a pattern. Cartel operatives didn't always wear tattoos or flaunt wealth. Many were quiet, living in suburban neighborhoods, blending into American life while coordinating shipments. But where drugs went, violence followed. In Texas border towns, cartel-linked kidnappings, executions, and extortion schemes began to appear. Local gangs in the U.S. became allies of the Gulf Cartel, moving product at the street level and returning profits south. In the late 2000s, the alliance between the Gulf Cartel and Los Zetas fractured. What began as cooperation turned into betrayal. Los Zetas, tired of taking orders, declared independence. What followed was one of the bloodiest cartel wars in modern history. From 2010 onward, Tamaulipas and Nuevo Leon turned into battlefields. Massacres became common, and thousands of innocent civilians were caught in the crossfire. The Gulf Cartel, weakened without Asil, who had been captured and extradited to the US in 2007, struggled to maintain control. But even as it weakened, its US operations remained strong. Drugs still poured north, fueling America's opioid and cocaine crises. The FBI, working alongside the DATF and Homeland Security, launched aggressive operations targeting Gulf Cartel cells inside the United States. Wiretaps, undercover agents, and informants revealed the cartel's hidden networks. In cities like Houston, Chicago, and Atlanta, joint task forces dismantled distribution rings, seizing millions in cash and tons of drugs. In one operation alone, authorities seized $41 million in cash from a Houston stash housed, the largest cash seizure in FBI history at the time. But every time a cell was broken, another emerged. The Gulf Cartel proved resilient, showing just how difficult it was to defeat an organization with deep roots on both sides of the border. By the 2010s, the Gulf Cartel was fractured by infighting. Leadership disputes led to violent splits, with factions in Reynosa, Matamoros, and other cities killing each other for dominance. The cartel's brutality weakened its support among locals, while the Mexican government, pressured by the US, intensified military operations. Yet, the Gulf Cartel never disappeared. It adapted once more, becoming smaller but still dangerous. It remains involved in drug trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, and human smuggling. Its scars on US cities are still evident, as families mourn loved ones lost to overdoses and cartel-fueled violence. The true story of the Gulf Cartel isn't just about kingpins or FBI operations. It's about the families destroyed. In Mexico, mothers search for missing sons buried in cartel mass graves. In the US, parents bury children who overdosed on cartel-supplied drugs. Entire communities have lived under the shadow of this cartel for decades. Teachers, police officers, journalists all risked their lives by speaking out. Some were silenced forever. The cartel may thrive on money and power, but its legacy is written in blood. Today, the Gulf Cartel is a shadow of what it once was, but its story serves as a chilling reminder of the consequences of unchecked corruption, greed, and demand for drugs. From the dusty streets of Matamoros to the FBI's war rooms in Washington, D.C., the Gulf Cartel's history is a story of rise, reign, and bloody survival. It is a story of violence crossing borders, of ordinary lives caught in extraordinary circumstances, and of a battle that continues to this day.